Why let the story like this rest in the dustbin?
A walk among the tombstones usually marks the end of a story. But for history professor Marc McClure, this was the beginning of an international adventure after he literally stumbled upon an overlooked hero.
I realized there was something different going on here. It says Lieutenant Kiffin Yates Rockwell. He was buried in France. Then I looked at the date and it said 1916. And then it occurred to me that the United States didn't get into the war until April 1917. What is this young man doing fighting in France before America even gets in the war? And that started the story.
Kiffin Rockwell was born in Newport, where his mother ran the elementary school. He learned to read, write, and history of how France came to America's aid during the Revolutionary War.
Raised with the belief that the United States owed France a great debt. 21 years old, all of a sudden World War I breaks out.
In 1914, Kiffin and his brother Paul volunteered to fight for France and did not tell their mother until they were headed overseas.
What his mother thought when she read that letter. So it says, "Dear Mama, we would have gone by home and seen you and explained things if we'd had time."
And these written words sent home from the war weave the story of a hero in the making.
There are hundreds and hundreds of letters. He was called to greatness.
But the Rockwell brothers nearly died in obscurity, both wounded in the terrible trenches.
He does not mind dying, but he doesn't want it to be a senseless, anonymous death.
Kiffin found a way to rise above as an unlikely pilot.
He had no experience with aviation whatsoever. In fact, he hadn't even driven a car. He says, "I will never forget the time that I was up above the clouds." And I think he realizes that he's seen the world from a different viewpoint.
Rockwell flew for the Lafayette Escadrille, a group made almost entirely of American volunteers. And in May 1916, Kiffin Rockwell became the first American pilot in history to shoot down an enemy plane in combat.
Kiffin just dives on that plane, fires off 4 shots, swerves away. He looks back and he sees the machine gunner fall back and the pilot fall over, and that plane descends to the ground. He has just scored the first victory of any of the Americans in combat, and it grabs international headlines.
For once, Kiffin Rockwell's mother is not waiting for a letter to find out what he's up to.
This son who ran off to join the Army is now turning out to be a celebrated pilot in the international press. Kiffin, for some reason, became the standout for the Lafayette Escadrille. There was something about his style and his demeanor grabbed the hearts of the French people who came to know him.
Kiffin Rockwell keeps taking to the skies for months and knows this dangerous chore probably makes it temporary work.
He writes home to his mom and he says, "Even if I die, it is the right thing for me to do," that he's doing this great thing for the cause of humanity.
In September 1916, Rockwell dove on a German plane, was shot and killed by the tail gunner.
The people are very upset to hear that Kiffin has fallen. He was inducted into the Legion of Honor, which is France's highest honor that they can give someone.
An American honored abroad, yet somehow less celebrated at home.
Well, this marker in downtown Newport, just a few hundred yards away from the house where Kiffin Rockwell was born, is really one of the only tributes devoted to him anywhere in East Tennessee. But over in France, they celebrate Kiffin Rockwell and his entire fighter squadron as American heroes.
Yeah, and it's the birth of the U.S. Air Force with this squadron. How they get lost in history, I don't know. I do want him to be remembered.
So McClure took Rockwell's letters and created a documentary in English and French, and was invited to show it in France.
And they laid a wreath at Kiffin Rockwell's grave. And then to see, of course, the spot where he fell, it's pretty amazing. You know, you're looking up in the air and you're imagining what the fight looked like. The people who knew him wanted him to be remembered.
A journey around the world to bring the tale of an American hero back home and ensure the story of Kiffin Rockwell does not end with letters in an archive or a marker in a graveyard.
Every once in a while we get the perfect hero, but actually this guy's real. That was the thing, he's real, and it's not made up.
In Morristown, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News.